Thank you very much. I'm sure this is very different from what you guys have been listening for the whole day today. Anyway, I was asked to speak about service and the kind of work that I do. Gift of the Givers Foundation was established on the 6th of August, 1992. I met a spiritual teacher in Istanbul. It was a night player, night program, and I met him the year before, in 1991. When I met him in 91 and again in 92, he said, "My son, I can see in your soul that you're somebody who likes to help people." Then he said, "I'm instructing you, I'm not asking you. I'm instructing you to form an organization, and the name in Arabic will be Waqful Waqifin. Translated into English, it means Gift of the Givers." He said, "You will go back to South Africa, and you will serve all people unconditionally." Your motto? Not working. Okay, there were. Your motto in Arabic will be Khairun Nas May Yanfa'un Nas. Translated into English, it means best among people are those who benefit mankind. And he said, remember, the emphasis is on the word mankind, not a particular group, not a particular color, not a particular race. Doesn't matter which country they come from, what politics they belong to, you will serve all people unconditionally. He said, you will serve them with love, compassion, kindness, and mercy. And especially those who are downtrodden, who are in difficulty. You will make sure you preserve their dignity. You will not do anything second-hand or secondary standards. Now, this can be a very long program. I've got 30,000 slides of all the works that we've done, and you don't have that amount of time. And since we've got only 15 or 20 minutes, I just want to illustrate a few lessons from some of my projects. Is jumping on its own? Okay. Just to go back, the one before this. In 2002, we were accredited by Proudly South African as the first Proudly South African international organization. As I mentioned in my doctorate talk, to be recognized by other parts of the world means nothing, not recognized by your own country. To be recognized by other institutions is not the same than to be recognized by your own institution. And to get accreditation from other countries is not the same as getting accreditation from your own country. That's why, to me, when it said, serve people with dignity and be the best at what you are, made us make sure that we're the best at what we do. The first project, which I haven't put here, it's going to take too long to speak about, is the world's largest containerized mobile hospital. The first one of its kind in the world was designed by us. Up till today, no agency, no government has done anything similar to this hospital. But there's not enough time to go. The details are too much. I just want to show you some of the work that we do. We're involved in human suffering. We're involved in the saving of life. We're involved in healing and bringing relief to people in great difficulty. This thing doesn't seem to be. Okay, I'm being the wrong way. Okay. This is not a desert, it's a river. That's drought in West Africa, in Niger. Crops were just about coming up. Drought came and destroyed the crops. Whatever was left, the locusts came and finished it off. That's the animals. And that's the children. This is what we face almost every day in our work. You have to have strong minds, dedicated people to go across. When we went across here, the people were in great difficulty. One of the things that really affected me in this area was not so much the condition of the people, but I see this every day. What affected me was the political decision that was taken. When I asked them in the main hospital of the area, why are there so few patients in the hospital and not full with kids with famine? They said, and they gave me this answer that shocked me. They said a few months ago, there was a meeting in West Africa, the meeting of ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States. And they were told by the World Bank and the IMF that they should charge all patients in West African countries. If they don't pay, they cannot get medical services. And these kids, with that result, hungry, malnourished, kwashiorkor, marasmus and every type of disease affected by malnutrition, and they were dying, and they could not come to the hospital. When we got there, they told us that we're going to charge medical services to these people. And I said, I came with donor money, donor medicines, and doctors from South Africa. No way in the world am I going to charge for something that's supposed to be a free service. To cut the long story short, I went to the president, I went to the governor of the country, and in 3 minutes, virtually 3 minutes, we changed the law. And we made sure that this took service to the people. 15,000 patients turned up in 3 days. And thereafter, we provided food for another several thousand people. This was the crisis in Niger. We've been involved in 27 countries, but the culmination of all the experience of 27 countries and 18 years of work is this one here, the earthquake in Haiti. It's probably one of the greatest natural disasters of all time. And I say that why? They'll say this is in the top 4 in terms of disasters. To me, it's number 1. And why do I say that? It's a very small country. It only has 9 million people. The earthquake struck 15 kilometers below the surface. If it strikes 35 kilometers or 50 kilometers below the surface, there's a better chance of survival. If it strikes very far away from the epicenter of the city, there's a greater chance of survival. Here, the epicenter was very close to the city. Secondly, it is only 15 kilometers below the ground. Thirdly, the construction was not of good quality because of the engineering and the way cement was used in these buildings. Ordinary mixing was done, no proper strong cement structures. And fourthly, the buildings are virtually on top of each other when they were built. So if you go to Port-au-Prince, you don't see separate buildings. It's like one long building because everything is on top of each other. So if one building goes, it's a pack of cards. Everything goes with it. The loss of life was more than 300,000 in a short space of time. Only 7 on its Richter scale, many countries would survive that. But because of the nature of the country and what the factors I explained, it destroyed everything. It was very, very heartbreaking. When my teams went across, this is what they saw. Not one, thousands like this. The grief, the hardship, the difficulty. I want to say something again that I mentioned at the doctorate speech. A few years ago, I met a Malawian diplomat in Blantyre. And he said, a few years ago, I was at a meeting in Europe. And in that conference for 3 days, they spoke about various things. And he said, do you know that in 3 years, the word Africa, the 3 days, the word Africa was not mentioned once in the whole conference. And he said he was about surprised. They mentioned Australia, New Zealand, Europe countries, America, Middle East, Asia, but the word Africa was not used once. So at the end of the program, after 3 days at the dinner, he asked the convener. He said, you know what, I'm feeling a bit shy, but why did you not mention the word Africa, and why did nobody here mention the word Africa? So he said, do you know what answer he gave me? He said, he told me that Africa is not relevant. But we are partly to blame for that. Because we are always going with a begging bowl. We don't have faith in ourselves. We underestimate our own value. And that's why when I see conferences like this, technology conferences, conferences on health, conferences on engineering, it makes me proud to feel South African. Because we represent Africa, we represent the African continent, and we can do wonders. When I went to the Pakistan earthquake in 2005, there were teams from Europe. And the first question they asked me, what are you doing here? Have you come to fetch something? I said, what do you mean I came to fetch something? He said, you guys in Africa are always asking for something. When this happened, 2005, and after the Malawi diplomat told me, I said to myself, we will make sure that Africa stands out. We will make sure that we will be counted. We will make sure that people will hold their heads high for South Africa. In 2003, the Iran earthquake, we were the first in the world to respond. We were there in less than 24 hours. A year later, the tsunami in Sri Lanka and in Somalia. There were 13 countries involved. Most people responded to Thailand and to Indonesia. I said, no, Sri Lanka does not have much assistance. They don't know what to do. The president of Sri Lanka came on TV saying, we don't have a disaster management plan. We don't know what to do. We don't know how to respond. In 24 hours, my teams were already in Sri Lanka. That was on the 27th of December. On the 28th of December, the president of the country met our teams. Within the first 5 days, we sent in $1 million of aid. I flew in tents from Dubai into Sri Lanka, from India into Sri Lanka, and in Sri Lanka itself, I hired a cargo plane that would take the goods across the broken bridges, the broken areas where the roads were not passable anymore. And we saved lots of lives, and we were the first agency in the world to be given land by the Sri Lankan president to set up housing in Sri Lanka, which we did. Coming back to this earthquake, I said it's one of the, not the one of this, the worst one in the world. People say, yes, loss of life is 300,000, and the loss of life in Indonesia may have been 400,000 in the tsunami. But Indonesia is a country of 220 million people. Pakistan, the whole northwest province was gone. An earthquake strikes a city. In Pakistan, it struck the entire region. 400 villages were knocked out. More than 400,000 people died. But in Pakistan, you could bring somebody from Karachi. You could bring somebody from Lahore. You could bring somebody from Rawalpindi. There were other areas from which you could bring people. In Indonesia, there's many islands from which you could bring people. But in Port-au-Prince, when 300,000 people died, the country was gone. Because Port-au-Prince was the country. There was nothing much around there. So it means that all the guys who trained in technology, all the guys who trained in medicine and in engineering, if they were in that city, it means 35 years of skills are wiped out. Because they could start grade 1 all over again, get to matric, go to varsity, get in the job market, go to America, get experience and come back. Besides the 200 years of difficulty they've had, besides what the earthquake has done to them, they are now 35 years behind even before they start. That's the crisis of Haiti. As I said, we wanted to make the world know we are there. 6:10 on the morning of Wednesday, 13th January, I got a call from 702. I just got back from Egypt. And they said, did you hear about the earthquake? I said, no. They said, put the TV on. I put the TV on. It doesn't take me long to figure out how big a disaster is. I'm in this business for 20 years virtually. And at 6:30, I made the announcement that we're responding. This is not about me. This is about South Africa. At 7:30, South Africans were ready. The search and rescue team and the search and rescue equipment were ready to leave for the airport 1 hour later. An hour later than that, 53 medical personnel, the top-class specialists in the country, were prepared to leave Garden City, Brenthurst, Mediclinic, St. Augustine's, eThekwini, Entebbe, from all those kind of centers. They were ready to leave in an hour. But they heard there's looting and there's shooting and there's aftershocks and after effects. But they were still prepared to go. When we went into Lebanon, 100 South Africans were prepared to fly into a war zone to provide medical services. Who says we cannot do it? We have the heart and we had the skill. And we went in, within 7 days, the South African search and rescue team, together with the Mexican team, pulled out this lady, 64-year-old Enazizi, a Christian Catholic lady from there. The moment she got up, she told Ahmed Bam, he's from the Northwest, the premier released them to come with us. And he told Ahmed Bam in French. He doesn't understand French. But in any case, she told him in French, I love you. And she said, I love God. She said, for 7 days, I sat here thinking of God Almighty. When you can go from so many thousand kilometers away and reinstill hope in people in another country, you know you've done something great. But I have to qualify something. My spiritual teacher gave me the most important message. From everything that he told me, the most important message he gave me, he said, my son, remember, and remember this well, that whenever you do something, it is not done by you. It is done through you. The day you forget that, the gift is gone. There should be no inflation of ego, no thinking I did it. Believe me, I have done a hell of a lot of things that even I can't understand how it got done. It's not possible the kind of stuff that we've done. You can get into a country, phone the president of the middle of the night, and he responds to you. Cross borders where nobody in the world can cross, and you go across. I'll give you one example before I finish off here. When I built the hospital for Bosnia in 1993, it was self-contained for theaters, X-rays, ICUs, burns unit, 28 containers of the state-of-the-art technology which nobody in the world had seen. Even so much so that when CNN went into Mostar on the 2nd of February 1994, they filmed the hospital and showed it to the world and said this South African containerized mobile hospital is comparable to any of the best hospitals in Europe. And he was not talking about container hospitals in Europe, because there is no container hospitals in Europe. He was talking about normal fixed structures. And then this was what we had achieved. And this is one of the achievements. And when we built this hospital, one Tuesday afternoon, I realized, you know what? I've done all this, but there's no theater equipment. Never assume. Never assume they're going to find equipment in another area. Everything is bombed. So I said, let's find equipment. I picked up a few medical surgical companies, I called them. They gave me a cost of what I wanted. Orthopedic set, trauma set, gynae set, general set, all the kind of sets. They said 60,000 rand in 1993 was a lot of money after you spent 8 million rand. And I said to myself, this is very expensive. Need money on the other side in case we get stuck, something gets broken down, transport costs, accommodation, bombing areas. We need money for that. We need spare money. I did my afternoon prayer. I went to my post box. I was still a GP, 6.5 years practicing. I went to the post box. All the mail came. There were a whole lot of medical journals, medical company papers. I picked up one paper. Exactly the surgical instruments that I required was in this brochure. So I phoned the company, and I said, I want all these things. They said, 30,000 rand. So I shouted them. I said, are you giving me plastic? They said, what do you mean? I said, the company quoted me before you was 60,000 rand. What can you give me for 30,000 rand? So they said, give me the name of the company. So I told them who the company was. And they said, we supply to that company. Do you know what's the strange thing? 6.5 years, I received brochures from all companies. I never received a brochure from the surgical company in 6.5 years. The day I wanted surgical equipment, it was in a post box. Let me tell you something else. From that day up till today, I've never received a brochure from that company. And everybody else's brochures have still been coming. It's done through you, not by you. When we pulled the survivor out, CNN was there live, Sky News, BBC, Mexican TV, and all kinds of TV were there. South Africa and Africa got recognition for believing in ourselves. A day after the search and rescue teams, 3 days later, the medical teams went in. And when they went in, they met teams from America, Europe, France, everybody was there. France is part of Europe, but the French and Americans were there at the Seventh-day Adventist Hospital. When they came there, they said, it's not possible to function here. No X-ray machine, no MRI, no equipment. How are we going to survive? So the South Africans said, this is nothing for us. We can manage. So they proved to the rest of the world that they went to work 20 hours a day. To the credit of the Americans and the French, they told everybody in Haiti, if you want service, then go to the dream team. South Africa is the dream team. What the Malawian diplomat told me, we corrected many years later in 2010. That we have the skills, we have the capability. I'm sure this conference stands out internationally. We need to believe in ourselves. If you go to Europe and America, some of the best intellectuals are from Africa. They've taken them from our continent. We refuse to believe in our own capability and our expertise. I need you to get this message across. Believe in yourselves. Miracles can be done. Thank you very much.